A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So, what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. Today, I'm joined by Eric Hawkinson. He is the VP of Marketing over at Canon Solutions America. Eric, how's it going today, man?
Logan, it's great. Like I said, I just came back from Chicago to South Florida. The weather's quite a bit better, so I can't complain, and I'm ready for this podcast.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. We're going to be talking about how marketers can mix up the different media types they're using, play with a little bit of online and offline, mix it up, and play both of those off each other for better results. Before we get into today's topic, though, Eric, I would love for you to tee it up a little bit. Give us a little bit about your background as a marketer and what you and the Canon team are up to these days.
Something I'm so uneasy as talking about myself, but I will tell you that I started my career basically in politics, and I started in Illinois. And if you know anything about Illinois politics, I think 2 out of the last 4 governors have been in prison. So needless to say, I've had a very exciting time, but I share that because my marketing mind really was formed into how do you create one-to-one messages that reach out to a potential voter. And, we did a variety of things from the late 90s and the early 2000s from a mailing perspective. And it just so happens that focus on mail and the focus on the print and the tactile message that it can deliver brought me to Canon. And to find out where I currently am the vice president of our production print solutions team, which takes very wide-ranging opportunities to create very specific, dynamic, variable messaging to create whether it's a consumer or whether it's a person's opinion. Consider the message that we're trying to push, and I've been doing that for the past 6 years, and I really couldn't be happier to be talking to you.
I love it, Eric. So we actually had a previous guest point that out, that if you look at politics and campaigning, for good or bad, in a lot of cases, you can learn a lot as a marketer because the principles are the same, that you're trying to reach a lot of people. You're trying to personalize and contextualize information to persuade or influence an action or a decision. And so there's a lot that can be gleaned from politics, probably a lot that you don't want to, but certain things that you can learn from politics and apply them to marketing. So I think that definitely is something that's interesting from your background for sure. So as we mentioned in the start, we're going to be talking about mixing up your marketing methods offline and online. Part of what is kind of driving this conversation, at least for you guys lately, Eric, is what you guys have seen as, Americans' digital fatigue. Can you unpack that term for us a little bit and speak to some of the things you guys are seeing in the market that B2B marketers are dealing with?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, I think it's worth noting that Canon, most people think of as a camera company, right? And the fact of the matter is we have a very robust printing group. One of the things that we're always trying to do is to identify opportunities or trends in the industry. Digital fatigue is something that we've noticed a lot lately. And this has been actually crystallized by a study we did called a Print for Action survey, which we did very late in 2018, that speaks specifically to what digital fatigue can be to potential consumers. And I think it's important to note that almost 7 in 10 Americans feel overwhelmed by the constant onslaught of digital information. I'll speak for myself when I say I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I look at my email and I swipe left immediately to start deleting things that I don't have to actually be aware of or be involved with. That digital fatigue is something that hasn't translated into print. In fact, if I think about just as my mailbox is concerned, I can get, a variety of different email messages that I would never look at. But if I get a catalog from a major retailer, or if I get a holiday card from a relative, I'm going to always open that, either that magazine or that letter, because I want to see what it does. And for me, it elicits a different feeling, right? And it's not just because I work for a printing company. The survey also shows that if people will appreciate getting a greeting card or looking at a catalog, and it will actually elicit that emotion to drive them to make a decision. The one story I will share is that, I've got 3 little kids. The one, my oldest daughter, and I'm not happy to say this, when we get the American Girl catalog, this is a banner day in the Hawkinson household, right? Because we start dog-earing pages, we start highlighting that and saying, here's all the things I want to get. And thankfully, she's still, and I do believe in Santa too, but she also believes in it. And she will start circling those things. And it's an opportunity for us to go ahead and take that and say, maybe this is some of the things that we're going to want to invest in for her holidays. So, as I think about the digital fatigue, the digital fatigue is something that will always be there. And we're very much a proponent of omnichannel marketing, but I think that you have to understand the value that the printed piece plays today, and again, the value that it can drive in consumers' behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we were talking with the folks over at Sendoso who partner with us on the ABM series here on B2B Growth. And we've touched on in that series how physical items, whether that's a printed piece or something else physical, can often break through the noise because it is a different experience. That tactile experience is different than seeing something on a screen. And you point out a good example of that. And I love that we're getting into the holidays and you got a Christmas related example for us, Eric. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about, and you alluded to it a little bit as we were talking offline, some quote unquote old school marketing methods that might still have some merit, taking advantage of the swing to digital, the swing away from direct mail and print, to where there's some opportunity to kind of swing back the other way, maybe kind of zig when everyone else is zagging, and work that into your marketing mix.
What I would say, there's, printing knows no bounds. You can be as creative as you want to be. And I'll give you one specific example. We had a customer who had a showroom, right? They wanted to be able to show that showroom. And they realized that when they got people to the actual customer experience center, as it will, that they were that much more inclined to actually go through and purchase with them. So one of the things they asked is that what can we do to change up the way that we're going to market to our very small addressable market? We came up with an idea, and we were able to institute it, where they created a direct mail piece. And that direct mail piece had an offer on it. Again, this is nothing novel. This is something that's been done from as far as digital, or as far as direct mail has begun. But that offer was not just to come in and take a look at the customer experience center. It was to go ahead and get virtual reality goggles. You can get those virtual reality goggles for $99. And what happened is the second they responded to that direct email, they got sent this set of virtual reality goggles. And with that, they were actually able to download an app where the company that we worked with did a virtual tour of their customer experience center. The point I'm trying to make is that sometimes you're not always going to get people to come to your place of business. You're not going to get people to actually see it firsthand. So you find ways to come to them. And the way that we were able to create brand new revenue opportunities was creating a printed piece that drove them to a digital platform. So again, it's not a traditional way of doing direct mail, but it's a new and innovative way to doing it. And it actually ended up driving a ton of results and a ton of net new sales in 2018.
Today's growth story is about a brand we all know well, Airbnb. When they were trying to maximize growth among work travelers, Airbnb knew they needed to develop and execute a content strategy to reach multiple personas at different stages of the customer journey. Enter Hub-and-Spoke.Marketing. Hub-and-Spoke managed creative content development and crafted a custom publishing process that allowed Airbnb to develop more content in less time. The end result? A lot of content across multiple channels, all strategically nurturing leads through to conversion. Within the first 6 months, Airbnb nearly tripled the number of companies enrolled in their Airbnb for Work program. They also saw huge increases in user adoption, with work travelers booking longer stays and more guests per booking. If you're looking for strategic content at scale, I've got a hunch Hub and Spoke can help. Head over to HubSpoke.Marketing/growth to schedule your consultation with a content specialist today. That's HubSpoke.Marketing/growth. All right, let's get back to the show. That makes a lot of sense. Kind of taking, as I mentioned earlier, quote unquote, old school marketing methods and mixing those with the new channels that you're already using and seeing how they can play off of each other. Do you have some other examples, Eric, of ways that digital and print can work off of each other? It doesn't always have to be this type of example where you're using print to drive to digital. There can be, vice versa, or another way to drive from print to digital. I'd love to hear some other interesting use cases that you guys are seeing out there in the market as marketers are getting savvy with mixing direct mail and print with their other digital channels.
I said it earlier, that omnichannel campaign is something that, if you talk to our companies, if you asked me what my business is, I would say we're in the printing business. But if you asked the people who actually buy from us, they would say that they're in the marketing business. And that term omnichannel marketing is more true today than ever before. And some of the classic examples I will give you is that, someone has told me once that, the average attention span of a goldfish is 7 seconds. And currently the average attention span of a human adult is like 4 seconds. So we don't even have the same level of interest in things as a goldfish does. So we have to find ways to bombard them. And this is where that omni-channel campaign is really going to come critical. So whether it's sending something through email, through text messages, or through print, we have to have a symphony of those or an orchestration of those messages to make sure that we're actually hitting people with the message we want to hit them. That's a very long way of saying that even as we're sitting here today on Cyber Monday, I could tell you that come this past Saturday, I received numerous catalogs and brochures with coupons. Sometimes they come with very identifiable Eric Hawkinson-like coupons that speak to what I want to do, which is either to buy music or video games. And then I'm able to take my phone and through a simple QR code, actually go directly to that website on Cyber Monday and purchase. Right? Again, it was the confluence of all these things that brought me there, and something as simple as a QR code or an augmented reality app that makes me want to decide what I want to do or how something might actually look in my home. For example, there was a great catalog last year from IKEA, which you were able to pull up, a wide range of their Scandinavian-looking furniture, and then take an augmented reality app and put it directly in your place of business. So from the catalog, creating the app to take a look at where that sofa is going to be placed in your home or office became a wonderful way of finding whether or not I was going to make that purchase decision. Right. So again, it's all of these ways that help drive sales. Print is just still a very significant component of that omni-channel platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the idea and the use case of QR codes. I was just talking with one of our customers the other day, and we were talking about the rise and fall of QR codes. That's probably actually giving it too much play, because it seems like they've been around for a while. We never really saw huge adoption. But one of the things I've noticed is that, with my Google Pixel, with the camera app now on the latest version of Android, and maybe it's been there for a little bit, but I just happened to notice it because something I went to take a picture of had a QR code on it. And now I could select that without having a QR code scanner installed on my phone. I think, that need to have a specific QR code reader in a dedicated app was one of the barriers to people using and acting on a QR code. My understanding is latest version of iPhones and on iOS, that's there as well. Are you guys kind of seeing QR codes as a little bit of a renaissance because of that lower level of friction there is now being embedded right into the camera apps of the two major mobile platforms?
That's huge. And again, what was so complex even a couple of years ago was, was it Layer or Blipbar? What were you going to use? And would it work with this significant app? And we're seeing that in both those platforms that you discussed. It's been a very simple transition for people to get the information when they want and go where they want to go to. So we've seen kind of it's funny, some of the companies that we work with, they're employing some of the most interesting people that would not be your traditional marketing people. What they're hiring is they're hiring behavioral scientists, or they're hiring different psychotherapists to find out purchasing patterns, and using that to influence what type of QR code or what type of embedded image will drive them to a specific place. And I find that fascinating. Marketing knows no bounds in terms of what's going to be the next great way to drive people's attendance or gather people's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, you kind of hit the nail on the head, drawing that correlation between marketing and behavioral scientists. At the end of the day, the tools, the technology, the media, the channels, those will change. There will be ebbs and flows. There will be swings one way and the other. But the thing that won't change is what we talked about, at the beginning of this conversation, Eric, and that is marketing is about communicating to people and influencing a decision or a choice to make a change, and therefore understanding people and how to communicate with them is the fundamental of marketing that you absolutely can't lose. As we wrap up today, Eric, I would love to hear any final words you'd have for marketers looking to stand out, especially in Q4. We've got the holiday seasons. We're talking about print, so maybe you have some thoughts on holiday cards, those sorts of things. It might be one of the times where, people use print more frequently in Q4 and around the holidays. But anyhow, in this conversation about mixing up your media, getting creative, anything specific around the holidays or end of year that you've seen working well for folks, or any final parting thoughts for people?
Yeah, I think, print is still relevant. And again, there's so many ways that it can be utilized today. You don't have to go so far to see how it affects your specific life. I go back to the greeting cards. I think it's interesting to note that 63% of Americans that have been surveyed prefer a printed card from friends or loved ones. Those are things that, I always think about how I would hang them on our door frame and look at that at the end of the year and think about all the people that cared enough about me or my family to send a letter. Think about that as you're a business owner and you're looking to reach out to your potential customers or prospects. That goes a long way. Also, the fact what print can mean at the register. I think, if you're a wine producer or if you're producing anything that's consumable, the people, if we take a look at the type of people that choose one particular label versus another, you'll see that millennials, on average, 63% of the people who pick that wine or that consumable beverage pick it based on the label, so being able to be creative and not just have your basic, Arial font. Not that many people do that anymore anyways, but be creative and know that print can be very much a component of what makes people decide whether or not you're going to choose your product. So again, the holidays is a perfect time for this, but don't forget, on the heels of the holidays, we got Valentine's Day. People want to know that you love them. People want to know that you care about them. And we keep on rolling after that. Print is still going to be a very valid and very strong component of all consumer messaging moving forward.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me, Eric. Well, this has been a great conversation, man. I appreciate your thoughts. Having spent 10 plus years selling printing equipment, some of that Canon equipment, this has been a nice throwback and a good, fun conversation for me. And I hope listeners out there got some value. If they did and they want to follow up with you, Eric, and ask a follow-up question, stay connected with you, or learn more about what you and the Canon team are up to these days, what's the best way for them to stay connected or reach out?
Yeah, feel free, of course, to reach out to me. I just saw that if you have specific questions, we do have an email address, which is info@csa.canon.com. Of course, we're always open to crazy suggestions or rather provocative ideas. Canon is a technology company that leads in the print space. We want to make sure that we're finding the new ways to interact with our customers as we look into 2020 and beyond.
Great final thoughts. I appreciate it, Eric. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show today, man.
No worries. Anytime I can help.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.